let me play you the sound of my people. God bless America.
This is the manliest thing I've ever done in my life.
The Corvette Z06 and GTR Nismo represent the current top-tier performance cars from their respective countries. The Z06 is the latest profoundly crazy Corvette. It's a car so fast, so capable, and so inexpensive relative to its performance that you almost don't believe it exists. It has 650 horsepower, 650 pound-feet of torque, and tires as wide as they are sticky. The GTR has always been the car that made you question your understanding of basic physics. This Nismo edition is the result of Nissan's continued quest to make it faster and better handling. It now has 600 horsepower and more aggressive suspension tuning. You may think of the GTR as the underdog here, and you'd be right. It's down 50 horsepower and it weighs around 350 pounds more, but it combats that penalty with an intelligently powered front axle that helps it escape corners at unbelievable speeds. Through its short gearing, traction, and torque, it's able to do things you don't think it should. The Z06 has some clever tricks too though, including an electronically controlled differential, magnetic shocks, and a stability control system that makes it an easy car to approach. Its Z07 package gives it large carbon ceramic rotors and sticky Michelin Cup 2 tires, while the Stage 3 Aero package adds a large gurney flap and an extended front splitter. Despite being heavier and having less power and torque, the GTR's massive traction advantage allows it a more aggressive launch, and its fast-shifting dual-clutch transmission helps it beat the Z06 from the launch all the way to the quarter. Both cars exhibit spectacular braking performance and grip, but it's the Corvette with those sticky Michelins that takes the braking edge, with a best stop from 60 of 91 feet. The GTR is easy to drive around the figure 8, making great use of its all-wheel drive and leaving the corners at crazy speeds. However, its best lap at 23.1 seconds with an average lateral G of 1.03 can't hold up to the Z06. In a shocking performance that I simply could not believe, the Z06 lapped the figure 8 in 22.3 seconds. That's just a tenth off the Porsche 918, which is the fastest production car we've ever tested here.
High RPM surge just feels so good. That coming out just feels great. We know this car, you know this car. There's been no shortage of coverage for this car, and I don't think I've been shy in how much I like this car. It's a very different machine than the Corvette. Obviously, it's all-wheel drive, it's heavier, it's taller, it's bigger. I can't decide which one looks better. Neither are particularly beautiful. They're both aggressive. They both are very focused on performance. It's easy to see that by looking at them. But I think styling is going to be a push between these two. They're both cool. They're both interesting. And I think they'll both draw crowds around them when you stop. The way this engine gets to life is just so different than the Corvettes. This has more of a rush, a high RPM sensation. Probably the most fun thing you can do in this car is see how early you can get on the throttle through a corner. Because the car just tucks in, rotates, and gets you through at just such amazing velocities. There's a lot of confidence in the car, and that comes from the grip, that comes from the steering, and that comes from the body control and the balance of the car. I keep saying this is heavy. It is heavy, but it feels really nicely balanced. I don't get a sense of understeer. I don't get a sense of heavy oversteer. I just get a sense of speed, speed, speed. The twin clutch transmission works incredibly well. It's beginning to show its age a little bit, especially in contrast to some of the newer twin clutches that are on the market. Some of the shifts can be a little slow, they can be a little clunky, but I don't mind, if I'm perfectly honest. Now, it doesn't sound great, and we've gone on about that with the GTR ever since it first came out. You don't hear much of the turbos, they're just slightly there, and the sound of that V6 is just okay. The ride quality, the seating position is more SUV-like, and this is so tall. Where this car definitely comes up short is the brakes. This doesn't have the carbon ceramic rotors. This doesn't have the same crazy grippy tire. Now, comparing the stats and performance measures of these cars, this is definitely the underdog in this comparison. That sound represents everything that's right with the Corvette Z06. You can just listen to that and know what this car is all about. As you already know, we got a 6.2-liter supercharged V8 with 650 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque. And that torque is basically available everywhere in the RPM band. It makes this car feel immensely powerful. The rate of speed you can go with this car, it's of the this shouldn't be legal variety. This new Z06 is pretty sophisticated, from its active differential to its magnetic ride to the stability control to all the various drive settings. There's a lot of tech happening behind that 650 horsepower and that noise. The tires on this thing, the Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s and the carbon ceramic rotors, give this car amazing braking performance. Just absolutely crazy braking performance. You want to challenge the brakes harder. You want to go into zones later because you have so much power at your disposal. We also have the Stage 3 aerodynamic package, which means we have flicks and splitters on the front and a big wing on the rear that takes up about half of the rear view mirror. Of course, thankfully, it's see-through, so it doesn't block your view entirely, but you always know it's there. The Z06 is the high-power, high-torque, rear-drive, manual, low-slung coupe of a sports car. It's extreme levels of lateral grip, thanks to those tires, and big power on the straights. The Z06 demands more respect. It's a bit more of a challenge, but I think there might also be a bit more reward in the process too. The interior is a little bit less boomy than the GTRs, and let's just face it, that sounds a lot better than the GTR. I think the GTR might be outgunned in this comparison because it doesn't have the power. It has more weight, doesn't have the tire, it doesn't have the brakes. It'll be really interesting to see how these do on the track.
Down the back straight at Willow Springs, this is a very high-speed track. The GTR is a pleasure here because of its stability. Such a good feeling rolling into a corner. It just lays in there. I know exactly where the car is going to go. The GTR for me is a car where I can raise that puff of dust at every apex and every exit, because when I floor the throttle, I have control. Through the middle of the corner, like turn 2, we've got some understeer. It's funny, each generation of GTR has been a little different. A couple of them in the earlier versions had a tendency to want to understeer under power. This Nismo, no, not so much. I think it's very well balanced under power. Little bit of oversteer on the entry, but let's not call it oversteer. Let's call it rotation, because I like it. It helps the car get in the corner. It's just so easy, so confidence inspiring. That's the big difference. Sweet little drift on the way into turn 3. I could just gas it out of 4. All-wheel drive out of the corner, right to the edge, exactly where I wanted it. The Nismo's got a rear wing, which gives it an advantage in a high-speed corner like this 125-mile-an-hour sweeper turn 8. Here in the brake zone, Nissan has the cast iron rotors normal style, and they just don't have the bite. The shifters are mounted on the stalk, not on the wheel. I think I'd really prefer those shifters to be on the wheel, so I always know where they are. Shifts are quick and snappy. A really enjoyable experience. The Nissan carries a lot more weight, and I can feel it. But the all-wheel drive and the suspension setup make it work. Pretty incredible, frankly. Look, over that jump, we're just hooked up, foot on the floor, no worries, no sweat, no fear. Stable, one hand, flooring it off the corner, no hands. Ha! Don't try that in the vet. We may have to adjust our sound levels just so I can talk to you here. We've got the exhaust in the track mode, and let me tell you, it is loud. And it is so cool to have an adjustable exhaust volume level. I love that feature. A lot of adjustability in the new Corvette Z06. We can adjust the shocks, stability control modes. I'm currently in the track mode, and let me tell you, it's stiff. Does offer a tremendous amount of body control. It's just not comfortable. We've got the full Aero Stage 3 package, got the manual gearbox, 7 speeds. .650 horse, crossing 140 at the start-finish line. Terrific brakes. Giant carbon fiber, part of the package with the Z07. Corvette has a tremendous advantage in the brake zone. Stops way better than the Nissan. It's geared tall. We can use third gear for much of the track. I feel that little bit of stability control coming in. In the track mode, it can be quite sudden. And it's a little loose. It can get to be a little bit of a wild ride. You've got to be on full high alert. You don't see me driving with one hand in this Corvette like I do in the Nissan. It takes full focus all the time. The Nissan GTR is a lot more stable than the Corvette Z06 is. Making just tremendous noises. I like the sound best, I like the brakes second best. I'm not too crazy about the tendency to oversteer of this yellow car here today. It's a drifter, let me tell you.
And now, a tire rack hot lap. Considering the Z06's awesome figure 8 performance, we simply couldn't believe that it would be a second and a half slower than the less powerful and heavier GTR on a fast track like Big Willow. But after checking the data, rechecking it, and checking it again, it was true. What happened? Well, the data shows that the Z06 still has the advantage in lateral grip and braking, but was out-accelerated by the GTR. How's that possible? The main culprit, we think, is the wicker bill atop the Z06's rear bumper. It apparently produces so much drag at high speed that it neuters the potency of that supercharged V8, so we took it off. After lapping again, we found that the Z06 gained slightly higher speed on the straights, but the increased oversteer due to the lack of downforce meant it lost its cornering advantage. It was no faster. This leaves the Z06 in an awkward position. It should be the faster, better driving car of the two. It has the hardware, it has the tech, it has the power, and yet it doesn't put it together. We found both cars equally fun to drive on the road, from the Corvette's wonderful sound and low seating position to the GTR's maniacal mid-corner acceleration and better balance. Ultimately, we expected more from the Z06, and it didn't deliver in this test. It remains a performance bargain, but it was outshone by the GTR. The Nismo was able to do more with less power, less tire, less brake, and more weight. And for that reason, it wins this controversial episode of Head to Head.
Holy crap.
Is that enough?
Yeah, that's great. We were in the dirt.
Yeah, a little bit. Just kissed it. This car is just really loose. Except for the brake zone. Fantastic in the brake zone. Love the noises. I enjoy the manual shifter, and I don't think it slows it down very much. But the handling is just cuckoo. I'm surprised, shocked, that it's slower, so much slower than the GTR in a straight line. It's not supposed to be. I'm working way harder to create the lap time in the Vette than I am in the GTR. GTR, it's a walk in the park. In this car, it is a wrestling match. You're wrestling alligators the whole time, trying to